If ICE pulls you over while you're driving, here's everything that they have to prove, what they can ask you, and what your rights are in the situation. So here's the deal. ICE cannot pull you over randomly. They need reasonable suspicion that a federal crime or immigration violation has occurred. So no, just looking foreign is not reasonable suspicion or a legal reason to pull you over. Here are some examples as to what counts as reasonable suspicion. For instance, you're driving near a border and you match a smuggling profile. For instance, a big van with covered windows. Or your car was flagged in an ICE watch list. Or they could claim you were driving erratically or trying to evade law enforcement. Or maybe they've also seen you pick up or drop off people at a known undocumented crossing area. But ICE cannot just pull you over because you quote-unquote look undocumented, or because you speak another language like Spanish, or you're wearing cultural attire, or you're a passenger in an Uber or Lyft where the driver may be undocumented. So it's really important that you ask this question. Officer, can you articulate the reasonable suspicion for this stop? If they can't or won't explain why they stopped you, that's a big red flag that they don't have a lawful reason to pull you over. And in that case, you do not have to answer any questions. You can calmly say, if I'm not being detained, I would like to leave. Now, let's say they do give you a reason, but it's clear that it's not a correct reason. You can still say, I do not consent to any questioning. And you can say that I would like to leave if I'm not being detained. If ICE continues to detain you without articulating reasonable suspicion, they're violating your constitutional rights. So if this happens, take a note of the ICE officer's name, their badge number, and take note of what kind of vehicle they're in, as well as their license plate. And if it's safe, record the stop and contact a lawyer immediately afterwards if you can. Now, what do you and don't you have to answer? If ICE asks you, are you a U.S. citizen? You do not have to answer. You have the right to remain silent. If they ask for an ID and you're the driver, most states require you to show your driver's license, proof of registration, and insurance, just like a normal traffic stop. If you're a passenger in the car, you do not have to show ID unless they can articulate reasonable suspicion about you personally. Now, if they ask for immigration papers, if you're a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, you're not legally required to show that to them. However, it would quickly end the stop. But if you're undocumented, it's really important to know not to present any documentation that's false. Just say, I choose to remain silent. ICE cannot force you to answer. Now, if you are stopped at a border checkpoint, the rules are a little bit different. Border Patrol is allowed to set up immigration checkpoints along the border within 100 miles. This means they operate in places like California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and even places like Florida, Maine, and Washington state. These checkpoints are considered administrative checkpoints, so the government can ask for immigration documentation even if they don't have reasonable suspicion. So at a border checkpoint, they can ask you if you're a U.S. citizen. And you do have to answer their question if you're the driver. Now, passengers don't have to answer unless the immigration officer has reasonable suspicion about them personally. But if you refuse to answer as the driver, they can detain you for a limited time to ascertain your status. So an officer could say, if you don't answer, I'm going to detain you. That's legally allowed, but they cannot force you to answer, and they cannot search you without cause. Now, here's a big one. ICE cannot search your car without your consent, or a valid warrant signed by a judge, or probable cause, which is a higher standard than reasonable suspicion. For example, if I see something in plain view, like fake passports on the passenger seat of your car, they could use that as probable cause to search the vehicle. But if they ask to look into your car, look at your glove box, look inside your trunk, you should say, I do not consent to the search. Now, if ICE says that you are under arrest, do not run, because running can be used against you. Also, do not resist. It's very important to stay calm in a situation like this. Instead, say, I want to speak to a lawyer. And most importantly, do not sign anything. If they take you in, you still have rights. You have the right to speak to a lawyer. You do not have to answer any of their questions. And make sure to recall as much detail as you can about the stop to share with your attorney. Feel free to share this information with anyone who you think could benefit from it. And follow us for more immigration news, tips, and information.